Dear friends, we are back with the next episode of Coach Excellence Coaching Conversations. And this time, we have a very interesting coach who comes from HR, and that is Rekha Upadhyay. Rekha, greetings.
Thank you, Kiran.
Okay, before I allow Rekha to share about herself, a quick introduction from my end. Rekha comes with 15 plus years of experience working, having worked in HR space with some of the best organizations. And she started her coaching journey in 2018. And I was pleasantly surprised when I heard what she achieved in the last 3 years. And that too, while going through a pandemic. So that was something very memorable and fabulous to hear for me. So I hand over to Rekha to quickly share a short introduction about herself before we begin. Over to you, Rekha.
Thank you so much, Kiran, for having me here today. And it's a pleasure to be here with you in this Coach Excellence series. So, a little bit about me. As a professional, I work in the areas of coaching, leadership development, organization diagnostics development, and talent management space. And as a coach, I work with individuals, teams, and groups in areas of executive leadership, inclusion, and diversity space. So that's very brief, a little bit about me.
That's a lot. Before even we begin, I would strongly recommend you to check Rekha's LinkedIn profile. At the end of this conversation, you will also be surprised. So with that, let's begin. The very first question for you, Rekha. What is coaching to you?
Coaching to me is the inner journey within oneself to discover the person we are and who we want to become. Because from my perspective, the person we are and the person we want to become both are equally important. And inner journeys are always uncomfortable, but with discomfort comes growth. And it's a path towards realizing one's purpose and potential.
Wow. That was a lot of pearls to catch while they were being shared. Some things that stood out for me on a serious note is when you shared about the inner journey, and also you mentioned who we are and who we want to become. You added a line there where you said both are important. It touched me that we often believe what we become is important and what we are not necessarily important. I think that false thought belief you have kind of broke it when you shared who we are today is equally important. You also mentioned that inner journeys are often uncomfortable. I think one needs to be prepared for it. But yes, you added a very important attraction there, which is with discomfort comes growth. This is something that in this very first question, it stood out for me, and I had to shift to reflect upon it while we are in this midst of the conversation. So with that, let's move to the next question. Whom do you think will benefit in having a coach?
I think anyone and everyone. When I look at my journey as a coach, and when I see people undergoing coaching, I always wish I had a coach for myself in the beginning phases of my career. It would have been wonderful for me. But I think anyone and everyone can benefit by having a coach, whether it's an adolescent to somebody who is to any age category.
Again, in these two things that stood out, and you very much started with anyone and everyone. It is so true. In having a coach, I think we all can, not just as coaches, but as coaches also, we can vouch for the benefits that come along in having a coach. And what you just shared resonates with so many coaches in saying, had I had a coach in the beginning part of my career, you mentioned even adolescents, It's a superpower. When you have it with you, would you not flourish? So I think as we all, as a human beings, believe, the potential of human beings is a lot more than what we can imagine or believe. And I think coaching is one aspect that would support a person to get that super human being or a individual from themselves. Fabulous. So with that, let's move to the next one. A very interesting question for most of the coaches. One myth about coaching that you would like to break today.
I think having a coach or undergoing coaching only when there is a challenge or when something is going wrong, right? We only seek support when something is not right. I think having a coach or having someone in your life who can support through your journey, even when things are going good or great, it really makes a lot of difference. I hear from a lot of people saying that I think I'm doing well and I'm not sure if I need coaching. But if you can, we don't realize these benefits unless and until we experience it ourselves. So, you know, only addressing things when things are wrong is not the appropriate approach. Even if when things are great, um, coaching is going to support each one of us um, to the level that we cannot even imagine.
Hmm. I would probably start with the last line in this context. Not imagine what one not imagine what they can achieve unless they get into that space. And the ones who experienced coaching, I'm sure 8 out of 10 will agree for this line. And you begin with only when there is a challenge, a coaching is required. It's such a misnomer. Often people believe, oh, there's a challenge, let's hire a coach. That's not to be. And this connects well with space I come from, Six Sigma. We call it continuous improvement. Continuous
Mm,
improvement not necessarily means that yesterday was bad. It is just about it. What can we do today that would be better? Better for the organization, better for self, better for the customer. So I think in every walk of our life, if one can get better the next day, I think where one can reach is probably just can be imagined. Could be too difficult for many to even think of. And you also mentioned a valid point that I'm doing well. Do I really need a coach? The easiest way I found as an example that stood out for me when reading a book, I think called $1 Trillion Coach. His name is Campbell, and he coached Steve Jobs. He coached Eric Schmidt. And Eric Schmidt, when he was offered this opportunity of having him as a coach, he told us, I'm doing well. Why do I need a coach? And often the thought process is, oh, there is something wrong with me, is why the organization is recommending me a coach. However, after 1 year having him as a coach, he changed his statement saying, I wish what you just said a while ago, I had this coach much before. I think it resonates very well. And I strongly urge the audience also to read this book, $1 Trillion Coach, a fabulous one on Campbell. With that, let's jump to the next question. A coaching
okay.
memory of yours that you can share with the audience with the confidentiality part taken.
So I am also a Carnatic vocalist, and I started learning at the age of 5, and I've been singing for the last 32 years of my life. And and I always learned under the traditional Guru Shishya Parampara. And my guru had passed away in 2009, and at that time, the relationship that I have had with her was for almost for 27 years at that point of time. And when you are with someone for such a long time, it's not just a normal teacher's disciple relationship that you have. It goes much beyond that. And I was one of the few senior most disciples who were left with her and who had been with her for such a long period of time. And and I learned things much more beyond than just music for my own self. And when she passed away at that point of time, it was very difficult for me to get back to the form where I was before she passed away, in terms of concerts, singing, stage singing. Because when you have a mentor or a coach who can, kind of um, be there to support you at every step, that was a void for me at that point of time. And when I underwent the journey as a coach myself, coaching helped me to discover my music back,
Yes.
and myself as an artist as well. So it's so coaching has personally also helped me
Mm.
to get back to my music, and a lot of people who know me closely are aware of this fact.
So much that resonates with me as well when you were sharing this. When you mentioned, I think it's very true that as humans, when we lose someone of that value for you, in this case, your guru, and a guru for 27 years is not a small thing. And I think humans typically find it difficult to come out of that zone. Whereas it is heartening to hear how coaching, as often they say, it's your own inner journey, you take it forward. And glad to hear that how it helped you to rediscover yourself. That's fabulous to hear. And one last thing, what you shared, it resonated very well to me and makes me speak again, is it personally helped me also equally. Whenever I have these conversations with any coaches about what I will do in the future and all, one line stands out for me, which I never imagined. Coaching helped me a lot by this day, with around 200 odd hours of coaching under ACC, PCC coaching training happening. And I think if the coach comes with that inclination to be that coach that any coachee can come to, I think the coach himself or herself gets transformed. So I share with all the friends in Unison. I don't know how many I can impact tomorrow, but I can safely say one thing. I, as a coachee and a coach, have already benefited immensely through this journey in this short span. So it leaves me only with a delightful thought that the years ahead will only be more promising. So it's a strong line for to remember for all coaches as well as coaches. Coaching helps both the sides immensely. The coach, the coachee, lot changes. With that, let's move on to the next one. A very often asked question again is, what is the difference between mentoring, coaching, and therapy?
Sure. So let's start with mentoring. So mentors or advisors are typically subject matter experts who come with a specific educational background and years of experience which they contribute, and they are there to help you resolve your problems, whereas a coach does not give any solution to your problem. um, Coaching is purely a space that a coach provides where one can be truly oneself, and in that space discover what you want to resolve or what you want to work upon for yourself. If I have to put an analogy, the coachee or the client is going to be the director of the cinema.
Hmm.
And coaching is about here and forward. So it's about present and moving forward. Of course, there are past situations, experiences that come within our way, which holds us back to take that first step ahead. So we do explore some of those elements and look at where are we now and where do we want to move forward. So coaching is a present and forward movement. Now, when we go to a psychologist or a therapist, psychologists helps us in resolving certain past issues or
Hmm.
certain um, you know things that we might be undergoing through clinical diagnosis and therapy. And they help us to resolve our past issues and bring us to the present and how we can manage our future. Of course, that comprises of clinical diagnosis, therapy, and at times, depending upon the severity, even medication. So, um, you know, uh, that's what therapy or going to a psychologist would be. But in coaching, there is no medication, there is no therapy, there is nothing of those sorts that is involved. It's purely a present and a future journey.
Thanks a lot for that short, crisp, but very informative difference. It pretty much resonates with me. I have been in the mentor's role in my previous organization for some time. So I think it is not sometimes you're not even required to be officially called a mentor. It also comes naturally to help others, guide them, grow. Often happens in organizations where they find it very easy because have a senior, there is a junior, you connect them, and often the junior sees the senior as a mentor. And I think expertise, mastery in that area comes along, and the mentor is seen as a hand holder. Like you hold the hand of the mentor and you go, and the mentor tells you what to do, what not to do, and so on. And many times we got in our culture, we got acclimatized to that kind of an environment. So that's where enters the better subject. I think without a doubt, everyone would agree. Coaching is a better space to be in if you choose to be in. Because here the resource is not a mentor, the resource is you. And as we shared in the beginning, how much is within you, most of the time one doesn't know. And in a coaching space, that self-discovery happens and people are in for a pleasant surprise. And also your analogy of a director pretty much connects well with the what coaching is. And as a director, how would you like the movie to be? Yes, it could be struggle, but I'm sure everyone would like to direct the best movie they can. So it's about self, their journey, their best, and probably not even worried about what's happening around. In my analogy, I typically often, though I never did it with a coaching or any context, was you are the baker of your cake. How would you bake it? So I think then all the attention will come, the thinking will happen day in, day out to make sure that the next bake or the next cake is going to be better. So that's a fabulous thing. And at therapy I think there is, I think a lot of times there is no disconnect in terms of the difference between therapy, coaching, and mentoring. But I think coaching, mentoring, sometimes that clarity is required. The therapy part, as you just mentioned, the clinical diagnostics, as well as the in dealing with the past, I think that stands out when it comes to therapy. So let's move on to the next one. The last question for the session: how easy or difficult is it for an internal coach in an organization to coach their colleagues, known, unknown? What's your
Mm.
perspective?
I think it's definitely possible, but it comes with its own risk factors, um, right? Because a relationship between a coach and a client is a two-way relationship, right? For example, if a coach creates that trustable, safe space, the client also creates the same space for the coach as well. However, in such scenarios, there are certain questions that one needs to reflect upon before doing some of these things. Is what kind of boundaries does the coach and the client want to create when they are going to be, when they are either peers or people around that a coach would be coaching in the organization, especially an internal coach. And I think that needs to be co-created to make the foundational relationship more stronger. And one also needs to be more cognizant about, will the peer or the other person be comfortable having to talk to an internal coach? Because a lot of things will get uncovered in such conversations. And number three, as internal coaches or the people that we are going to coach around, we need to be more cautious about our own biases that might come within our way. And these are very important things that needs to be thought about, and then think about what needs to be done next. So that's purely my perspective. Of course, it is possible, and internal coaches are there. Coaching happens through internal coaches as well. But uh, it's my thought that these three questions are very, very important, that needs to be thought about before even beginning the journey.
Yeah, got it. I think it's so true that when you are in the same organization, when you know each other, I think it gets probably even more complicated. And when you don't know probably who the coach is, and you mentioned about few things which are very important for that sacred space that we call coaching is to have that abundance. I stopped using, I dropped using the word of adequate. I use the word, chose to use abundance of trust and the safety that the coachee can feel. That's when only they would open up and speak. Else, I think it will always be like in a box. I don't know where this will go, and so on. And as you validly pointed, because a lot can get uncovered during that conversation, and how the coach and coachee carries themselves outside this conversation. I think it's very fascinating that you had just had a coaching conversation yesterday, and then you know that the coaching conversation was about a subject closed, and you are colleagues conversing the next day. I think once that get right, the moment they're in the coaching conversation, I think it's a different world. The moment they are out of the coaching conversation, they know that they will not talk about anything about what they spoke in the conversation. There's no continuity of that conversation, because that space is treated as a safe space and a sacred space, and that conversations will only happen in that space. And it also, I think, helps one reflect upon as to, you know, what else they can do going forward till the next conversation happens. So great to hear that. I think this leaves a lot of the audience with a thinking as to how this can play out in their respective organizations when they become an internal coach in an organization. I think it comes with a lot of responsibility, unlike of any other coach-coachee relationship. Probably a little extra amount of effort to get acclimatized to that environment. So with that, we are done with the questions, but however, we have one bonus question, and that is, given an opportunity, what would be that one advice from you for the wannabe coaches?
Coach also needs a coach.
Wow. Would you like
So
to elaborate on it?
sure, absolutely, with pleasure. So you know, it's important that as a coach, for me, I have my own conversations with my coach as well. And that space gives me to do a lot of reflection, to spend a lot of time on myself, which I might not be able to spend otherwise. And that space helps me to grow as a person. Coach is only a role that I play in life, but I'm the human being first. And that's why I said a coach also needs a coach. And I think at every given point of time,
Amazing.
whether we are flourishing, whether we are doing well, whether we are not doing well, whether we are going through personal challenges, it could be anything that we might be going through. But my experience is having a coach for myself helps me a lot. And I would definitely recommend, but of course, it's one's own personal choice to have that. But definitely, coaches also need coaches.
Fabulous. I think this is something that all coaches in Unison agree. And thereby, I think they're also setting an example. I'm just not being a coach. I'm also happily a coachee too, and have a coach of my own. And in my case, I saw it's still a work in progress. Is I see coach also as as my own alter ego. Yes. And the coach is there to reflect I think the mirroring part is very powerful, and often one ends up identifying their blind spots. It was there. It's just that in isolation, I could never see it, but in a reflection and in a conversation, it came out alive in front of me. And that's where those are sometimes the uncomfortable moments also emerge. And as validly said, in good times as well as not so good times. Because often we get carried away in the good times that, oh, it's all going well. We really need to have a coach. But I think in doing so, one would probably ensure their good times continue for longer duration. And I think even they're better prepared even if the tough times were to come their way. So with that, the questions from the conversation are done. Thanks a lot for joining in, Rekha, and for this wonderful conversation. And if anyone is interested to get in touch with you, what is the easiest way to get to you?
I think one can definitely look up to my LinkedIn profile, my email ID, and my number is given there. Or you can just drop me a message on LinkedIn as well.
I will also go ahead and share that in the description part so that the audience find it very easy to reach to you anytime if they would like to have a conversation. With that, we come to the end of today's conversation. I hope the conversation was fruitful to you and you enjoyed it, as well as it helped develop your perspective as a coach as well as coaching. Please feel free to share it with those whom you think will benefit from this conversation. And if you have any thoughts on today's conversation, please share it in the comment section. I myself or Rekha will get back. That's a promise. And also go ahead, subscribe to the channel so that you are among the first to hear when the next video get loaded. So till we meet again, please be safe and have a good time.
Thank you so much, Kiran.